Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. We're doing another sword review today, and today we are reviewing the Krieger Armory Club Series Longsword, exclusive to Kult of Athena. And the fine folks at Kult of Athena were nice enough to send us this one for review purposes. Yeah, so here we have it. Interesting looking sword. We're going to do a bunch of testing with it, and I'll just give you some of the specs as they are presented on this side. You hold it and play with it. Okay, and let's just have a look at the stats as they are on Kult of Athena for this blade. So this is a little bit generic. This is overall length of 49 inches. Then we have a blade length of 37 inches. It weighs about 3 pounds and 9 ounces. The blade width is 55 millimeters. The thickness at the base is 3.1 millimeters. At the 1 inch away from the tip, it's 2.3 millimeters. And then we have a point of balance about 2 inches from the guard. The whole blade is 1075 high carbon steel. So this is a longsword simulator, ideal for classes, lessons, and sparring, and you practicing on your own. So obviously this is a lot more sword shaped than we're seeing in like feathers, for instance. And that's kind of like the target audience for this, to have something a little bit more true to the sources at a reasonable price that makes it affordable for individuals, and also ideal if you want to do like bulk for a club or a school and stuff like that. So what we're seeing here is a little bit of a unique construction that you usually don't see in these tools. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like looking at it, so the Club Series swords from Krieger have a really interesting construction method, which I guess is meant to make them a bit more affordable by not necessarily going the traditional way that swords would be constructed. So I guess if we get closer to the camera, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I'll give us a closer look and then you can describe it.
Yeah, so the Krieger Club Series swords, they all have this really unique construction, which my understanding is that it's a way to bring down costs and make them a bit more affordable. Instead of what you would normally see with like the crossguard and the pommel being forged or milled big pieces of steel, they're essentially the same width, like slabs, as the blade, and they've been stacked up and pinned and hammered together. So the crossguard is actually 3 pieces of steel thick, and it's pinned and hammered, and the pommel is 7 pieces of steel thick. Which at first when you see it, you wonder, why does it look like this? But once you hold it and you kind of play with it, you realize it works, it makes sense, and it's fine. It's just not normally what you're used to seeing, right?
Yeah. And then you can, as I'm moving it through the light, you can see these kind of pinholes, these where the pins go through. So that is happening on the guard and pommel. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then they're up here as well. And then we can see them on the pommel. It's a little bit harder there, you can tell it. So there, and there. So that's going all the way through, and that's how it's constructed.
And I guess the same thing is happening under the grip. I don't know how thick the grip is, but then that whole grip afterwards is then dipped in epoxy a couple times, I guess. So
yeah,
even though it's got like a natural cord, it's hard. So
I've actually, the maker had reached out, and he informed me that there is a 3D printed 2, what do you call them, slabs of material underneath there, and then it's wrapped and then epoxied.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very sturdy.
Yeah, I had like no concerns about, because I've had a Reginier fetter, which is just, it was the final layer was just cord wrap. Mm-hmm. You go to like 6 classes and it completely starts fraying and falling apart. No concerns when this whole thing is epoxy. I mean, up.
Yeah, exactly. And like wood cores, if they take a beating, they
split, so. And then your sword gets loose.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take this out. I'll probably do a bit of solo work, and then we're going to do some light sparring, and then we're going to amp things up with some full speed sparring, seeing how this holds up, how it feels, how it handles, and yeah, what our final thoughts are on it. Cool, see you in a bit. So first, I'm just doing some light flow work, getting a feel for the sword, seeing how it moves, how it feels in my hands. Working on moving that tip around and just like doing some general footwork. And as you might notice, I'm wearing some weighted gear. Doesn't really affect the way I'm handling the sword, but it was just like a fun little added resistance that I was playing around with. And now I've added my favorite training tool, the bicycle rack, which perfectly holds an opponent's swords to be a nice little simulator. So again, just working on striking the opponent's blade and following up with attacks and being able to move around my target, just comfortably getting a feel for all the motions and how it handles in my hands.
Oh, as you go into thrusts here, you can start to see the upswept guard, like trapping the blade on the extension, which looks really good.
Yeah, it's a really nice feature. I really felt like I maintained control while doing that. So now I've added a pel just to give myself like a target for behind the sword to strike and to find my measure, and working on like retreating after an attack, making sure my sword can like still cover. So what is really nice here, like it's so clear that what the edge alignment is as I'm retreating out to make sure that I'm always aiming at my opponent's blade. And here I'm doing some clay cutting, which is a really nice way of testing your edge alignment and working on follow-up attacks.
And I don't know who needs to hear this, but apparently if you dress up as an elf, it actually increases your cutting abilities.
Excuse me, I'm a ranger. Because if there's an opportunity to wear a costume, why not take it?
I guess.
It's 10 plus protection on your cloak when you're cutting clay.
And it doesn't get in the way when you're cutting, I guess?
No, it actually worked very well. The hood sometimes like block my view a little bit, but get good. It's cutting very nicely. Like I'm getting nice, straight, clean cuts. I'm trying to be efficient with my cuts. So sometimes I may miss when I'm grazing because I don't want to reset the clay all the time. Ooh, some nice horizontal slices there. All right, and now we're getting into some slow speed sparring, minimal gear, just focusing on control and our movements and feeling how the new sword works.
Yeah, no, I wasn't being super competitive, just seeing how things felt. Noticing that you were doing a lot of cutting around, because the sword just likes to cut.
Yeah, I'm just really trying to find the center of my blade, see what the optimal space is to take control of you, and what my distance is to be able to strike.
Yeah, and distance was important. Like you see, I just got a little like cut to the knuckles there.
Left my hands exposed.
And the difference when your blade's slightly shorter is I can take advantage. Which is nice, because usually you're much longer than me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to go in for tip cuts while I have control of your blade and find that I'm short once in a while. Like there, for instance, I just cut short of your mask. And there I was able to cut underneath. Always trying to come in with cover.
Yeah, and I'm really just trying to take advantage of the fact that I have more reach. And it still didn't quite work.
And here we're going into some full speed sparring. So I have the feather on the left and Tonio has the Krieger on the right.
Yeah, and I was having a lot of fun with it. It likes to cut.
Mm-hmm.
The Mezzaspada lets you get into like nice tight binds. And like you see here, like I was having fun like getting in close, getting grappling, which I don't usually do.
You were fighting very cleanly with it, which was fun to see and to like go up against.
It's just different from a feather, and it makes you want to play with it like it's a sword.
And I was trying to kind of use my reach advantage, which left my hands exposed a lot, allowing you to strike or come underneath.
Yeah, I was trying to go under a lot. I don't know if it was the sword doing that or just like my mood that day.
Yeah.
I like that. It
was also a gorgeous sunny day, so that was always nice to have.
Well, you can see the flexibility in the tip. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, and because you're moving on that flat, right? So, and on your edge, you still have like a really nice bind. So here we've swapped to me having the Krieger on the right. So yeah, again, I'm feeling the length of the sword and how I can use it to my advantage. I really like seeing the profile of this. It's like, oh look, that's a sword.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. I don't know why I'm just hanging out and letting you attack my hands. I don't know what that's all about.
Oh yeah, that one-handed hits.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that flex.
Beauty.
Cut underneath. Good. Trying another one-handed. Just seeing like what my max extension is.
Yeah, and you see what happens when you don't have the right edge alignment with the sword, which is what I think is really great about it. Really lets you know where your edge is, and you can see all that flex.
And there was like a slap there, which you could read very well.
Mm-hmm. Get out of here with that one hand slap.
You got me on the mask there. Looking through my guard. Always like trying to find that angle on you.
And the constraint game. Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah, got you on top there. I think that was a gorgeous double. Trying to work my way in.
And I guess it was that a loss of control or just not knowing the measure on it?
Yeah, perhaps. Trying to beat me away. Playing that Larga game. Oh, look at this. Yeah, nope. Too short. Nice.
I don't actually know what happened on that last one.
Okay, welcome back. As you can see, we've done a lot with it, tested it out, really kind of put it through the ringer as far as I expect what I want it to do. My first thoughts when I was holding it and before I had done anything is like, oh, this looks like a sword. That's really cool. But I'm noticing that it's kind of like the grip feels kind of bulky in the hand. Once I actually, and this was barehanded, so once I put on gloves, it felt a lot more comfortable immediately, and I wasn't noticing that width.
To me, it's massive. It was one of the few things, because I largely love the sword. One thing that I kept coming back to is, why is the grip so massive? I think you're a bigger guy, you have bigger hands, and it doesn't bother you as much. But like when I was just playing with it in my hands, and also when we're sparring and stuff, it's just, I felt like I was having to squeeze my hand closed to keep the sword in my hands. Yeah. Which is not conducive to having a light touch when I'm fencing, which is what I'm used to doing. Yeah. And I would be concerned, like, if you wanted to have a club sword that anybody in your club's going to randomly pick up and use, you're going to have people in your club that are not massive. Yeah. So that would be one concern for me. Like, small people are not going to be comfortable with this, I think. Yeah, that's definitely fair. And in my conversation with the maker, this was my concern as well, and they have confirmed that they are looking to slim this down in their next patch. Yeah. So I think that's great news. For me personally, the one thing I noticed, and that wasn't until full speed sparring, that I noticed that this shape of the pommel, because I have like a grip holding it by the pommel. I see people like to slide it up a little bit further up, but I like to steer with the pommel. That, I don't know if it's going to be able to see it. This kind of fishtail is digging into my pommel here. So to be more comfortable, I'd have to kind of like hold it up. So that's a little bit against my like norm. But that is one of the things that are updating as well, apparently. So they're going to like give this, like, I think a bevel. I was thinking of just taking a grinder to the edge and rounding out the edges of the pommel just a little bit.
And I assume these are mild steel.
Oh, I don't know.
Or if this is...
I assumed it was the same as like the
you think it's
whatever.
fully hardened steel?
Yeah, well, that seems like it'd be needlessly expensive though, so maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. Hadn't thought about it.
So yeah, this could potentially be... They are slimming this down, and I think that's definitely a good modification to make.
My assumption holding it was that whoever designed it just assumes everyone's holding it here and is not holding the pommel. So as soon as you're holding the pommel, it's got edges and it's got points. Yeah. It's not greatly comfortable.
And it wasn't like... The thing is, the way I hold it by default is so I have that line running and I can feel that indexing. But it tended to slip in my hand to be more flat like this, which would like lose my edge a little bit. But the nice thing about this is this has so much edge indication, because this is such a wide blade. You don't really lose too much of that, and I was able to, like, especially in like the full speed sparring, control it. During the cutting testing, there I didn't really notice it it was being an issue, and any scooping that was happening was all me. So
yeah. I mean, when we were sparring, reading through the description, if you look at what the makers of the sword say on Kult of Athena, and they define what this sword is kind of intended for. And I think it's worth reading if you're interested in the sword. But essentially, they're talking about that there's a gap in the market where you kind of go from synthetic swords, which are very affordable, but not like swords at all. And then when you jump up, you're either getting really, really expensive, nice longsword, not replicas, but like training versions of longsword. Yeah, training the longsword simulators, or you're jumping into fetters.
Yeah.
And it leaves a gap in the middle where if you want an affordable longsword simulator so that you can have classes where you can understand how a sword works, you can understand needing to have edge alignment. One of the things that fetters lets you do is you can kind of parry with a turned edge a little bit, and fetters are usually stiff enough that that's not going to be an issue. Yeah. When we were sparring, the second I had this at like a 45-degree angle on a parry, you just went right through the tip, and you see the sword go boing, boing, boing.
It tells you that you know immediately. Yeah. The other thing too is comparing it to other sword simulators. You're going up in price, but you're also going up in. So I don't want to say safety, because I think safety is always up to the people practicing together. But because we have more thinner blade, but like a wide profile, we get a lot of flex. And looking here at an example of like, this is a Schlabowski sword simulator where a lot of the weight and the beefiness is in the sword. So you need to have more control to comfortably spar with this. Or like take classes with and stuff like that. So, yeah. So
if you run someone through with that, they're going to feel it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are more beginner, I think this is a great recommendation. Also, a lot of people might still go for a fetter first because they want to get into sparring or competing. But I think this is a great supplement for if you want to do more true sword work, like more source appropriate work, because a lot of what we see in the sources is based on something more like this and not necessarily on fetters, unless you're looking at the specific like manuals obviously that do fetters. But like we do a lot of Italian
this would be great for Fiore.
This is
absolutely great.
Perfect. I would recommend this as like a starter Italian source trainer.
Especially when you're doing things like when you're getting into grapples, and Fiore loves grappling. And we've done classes where we're doing grappling and we had our fetters with us, and the fetters are too long or they're too narrow and the grapples just don't work, or you have to like really augment them. This is going to be beautiful for that. Because
fetters give you such an advantage basically that swords don't necessarily have. So it's not that much of a true simulator when you're doing a lot of this stuff, and this would be that.
Yeah.
So also, like I like the way it looks.
It looks dope. It's such a pretty sword.
I'm always a fan of like a nice big tapered blade profile. Like I love like the Alexandria swords.
You want your sword to be a slice of pizza, which I don't
understand. It's pizza time.
No, the sword looks awesome.
Yeah, and I think everyone has their own preference about what you think a sword looks like, and I usually like a faceted scent stopper. I wasn't a huge fan of upswept guards, but I think this looks really nice. And it really works with like the whole
and the giant langet on the blades fort
it's really nice.
Sweet.
So one thing they mentioned too is using it's a nice position for your thumb if that's something that you're accustomed to. And during the sparring, I kind of swapped between those two. For me, my edge alignment always like goes to shit when I do thumb. For me, it works really nice if we're doing like constraining work with thrusts, but the moment I try to cut with this, I'm slapping with the flat. And again, that's something very obvious with this versus like a fetter that you're hitting with the flat. Let's talk about this tip a little bit, because this is a spatulated tip. What we've noticed in the sparring, I think this worked fine. Like I said, lots of flex in there.
So when we were sparring full speed, we had our spec officer jackets on with no plastic under.
Yeah.
I took a couple thrusts, like it was fine. And that's not like super padded. It's not crazy. Like it flexes so much that it doesn't hurt. It's great.
And I guess that's one thing to consider as well. Like, do you want to put a tip on this? I guess technically you could take this to a tournament if it falls within specs, but usually tournaments have like rolled tip preferences, or then you need to like blunt it up. So that's something to be aware of.
Wrap a piece of leather and tie it over the end if you want to.
I guess we can touch on competitiveness of this, because I would assume this works the same as everything else, but the only thing is, because this is a little bit of a shorter blade, you're going to have a little bit of a reach disadvantage.
Yeah, it was 5 centimeters shorter than the short Reginier.
Short Reginier feather.
Yeah.
So
what's 5 centimeters in freedom units? Like 2 inches?
Two freedom units?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 5 centimeters is
It's
2
2
times 2.5.
Yeah.
So.
So.
Yeah. We're Canadian. I mean, kind of. So yeah, I think it would function if you know how to use it. Also, I think if you're a shorter person, I think a blade length more according to your size is in your benefit.
Yeah.
You don't almost want to have reach or hitting the ground or stuff like that. So
No, I love the blade length for me.
Exactly. I think this is a very good blade length for you. So the only thing there is like how beefy this current version is. So if they trim this down, and perhaps because there's a little bit of an angle on this grip as well, and that's probably the shape of the
3D printed thing.
Yeah, the 3D
I mean, it's
printed
rectangular, right? It's curved at the edges because there's rope on top.
Yeah,
but it's rectangular.
Yeah. So if that gets rounded out, I think you have a really nice handle here.
Yeah.
And this is just rope.
And the reason that it says in the description, it's for indexing. And that's the thing I really do like about it. Like if you hold it, like if you're in class and you're trying to understand, when I cut, I need my edge aligned, I need my arms aligned, and my body mechanics aligned. This is going to do an amazing job.
You're going to feel that in your hands.
And that's what I really like about it. Like if you have this in the hands of beginners, they're going to develop some really good fundamentals. And then when you give them a scent stopper pommel and a more oval grip, they're going to naturally know where their edge alignment is because they're used to having to think, or not having to think about it, but that's how they've trained to hold it.
Exactly.
And I think that was maybe put me at a disadvantage because I'm so used to having round, rolly kind of grips and stuff that I was really noticing like, oh shit, I don't have great edge alignment when I'm sparring. And like, this is good for teaching me that I was missing edge alignment on some of my parries.
Yeah, exactly.
And for cutting, I loved it.
Oh yeah, I mean like...
And I mean cutting and sparring, like when I was cutting at you and like you have to parry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it works very well in the bind. And like we tried this against, so these two swords here, the feather and the longsword. This longsword has a lot more mass, but this held its own.
Well, that's the thing. The longsword is technically lighter, but more of the mass is in the blade.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. This sword is heavier than both of those. But the point of balance is so far back because there's so much, I guess, like there's so much steel in the pommel and steel under the grip. Because I think this is like a big steel, I don't know how wide the tang is, but you can feel how heavy the grip is.
I think what it kind of looks like is that the tang is probably almost this was wide, kind of like one of those knife constructions.
Maybe,
with slabs on it. But then it is only the center one because you can kind of like peer through here and see that there's 3 plates on the pommel on this side and 3 plates on this side, and then the center one runs all the way up, and I assume that that's just the blade. And then here we have 1 slab on top, 1 slab at the bottom, and then a filler slab here. So actually this blade, it flares out into the guard, being part of that guard construction, so that's going to be super solid. And that has these pins in it as well, so each piece is pinned.
Yeah.
So,
but it ends up with this weird feeling where when you first pick it up, you're like, ooh, it's a little bit heavy. And then you start using it and you're like, why does it move so like nimbly? And it's because all the weight's in your hands.
Exactly. And that's because I do a lot of flow, and I usually prefer to use the longsword for that. But you really have to watch for overswinging because you can like have it pull and drag on your wrists. And when I started swinging this around, it's like, oh my God, this feels really nice. Like it kind of handles like a feather, but it looks like a longsword.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we were sparring when I was sparring against the feather, and when I was sparring against the longsword, I didn't feel, even though it was shorter, I didn't feel like I was at a super disadvantage.
Yeah.
I think part of that is because it's got so much blade presence in the bind, because you have a lot of width in the blade. I felt like as soon as we were across mezzaspada to mezzaspada, like anywhere even in this area, we're even matched.
Yeah.
And I could just like push you around, which was great.
Yeah, and I was still able to do like smaller tip cuts, like going for the hands and stuff like that, without being in danger because I was outreached.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's, again, if you're doing competitive sparring, get really comfortable with it. But in normal sparring situations, like post-class or something like that, I think this will get you some really nice feedback.
Yeah, I think the only situation where I wouldn't want to have this is if I'm going to a tournament where everybody's got these massive feathers.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
Okay, then you're going to be outgunned.
Yeah, but still, if you want to test your mettle.
I mean, yeah, if you can get good enough with, I mean, not even good enough, if you can get good with this, you can hold your own for sure, because those blades are not going to have the presence in the bind that this is.
So it's very versatile.
Oh yeah.
And you'll have like a sword-looking sword at a tournament, which is pretty cool.
I mean, so I don't think we've mentioned, but this is 395 American dollars from Cult of Athena, right?
Yes,
That's what
$3.95, correct.
So it is a little bit more expensive than a Regine fetter, which I think is $3.20. But it's a sword, which is awesome because as soon as you look at other swords that are going to be sword-like, you're jumping up to like sometimes $500, $600.
Yeah.
And looking at the description that the guys give about why the sword exists, they're calling it a club series, and I can absolutely see if I was starting my own club and I needed 10 swords, no question about it. I'd buy 10 of these.
I'm not sure what else there is on the market for like a sword simulator that you would want to like buy in bulk to be so effective at what they need to do without going poor. Like if
I mean, the other alternative is 10 synthetics, and who wants that?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's a huge upgrade from synthetics. Wow, a tongue twister. Which I'm generally not a fan of synthetics anyway. The only thing they're good at is being cost effective. They're not safer.
Swords.
They're not swords. Once you upgrade to a sword, it's going to feel different, and a lot of the things you might be learning might not be effective or might be incorrect.
Yeah.
So the sooner I think you grab steel, the better, and then having a affordable steel option, I think is great.
That's safe. That's the other thing, because the other affordable options are, I'm not going to say brands, but they're iron bars with grips.
Exactly.
And this is not that.
That's how we both started out, with these iron bars. And no matter how much control and restraint you show even during classes, when you're just doing simple exercises with wearing light padded gloves, like getting wrapped on the fingers is not pleasant. And this is fine. Yeah. This is pretty good. You can safely experiment with your techniques and with your structure and everything else. So
yeah, no, it's great for that, for the exact market that they've put it into. I think it works amazingly.
Yeah,
and it totally makes sense to me.
Yeah. We're going to be playing around with this a lot more.
I think this is definitely going to be just like always when we're doing our little forest adventure sparring. This is going to be the one in the backpack.
Yeah, exactly. Throw this in the backpack, throw it in one of the holsters, and take this on the road.
This is the one that's harder to explain to police why you have it.
Because it's so functional. I'm not worried about this like taking some damage or taking some rust, and it still looks great and it feels great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, really, really enjoying this one. All right, I think that's about all the information we have on this and our full opinion. I hope you found it useful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the sword and you're like, should I get it? The answer is probably yes, because you're in that niche where this makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you next time.